sorry to interrupt your current program to bring you breaking news. The Vietnam War has fully ended. After this long and exhausting battle, opposing sides have come to an agreement. And just as Nixon has promised, he put an end to the war. Kissinger was also correct in saying that peace is at hand. Nixon's plan of Vietnamization, turning over fighting to South Vietnam and withdrawing troops, and his idea of bombing Cambodia and Laos has succeeded. He was correct in instilling the idea into the Viet Cong that he was willing to do whatever it took to end the war. Since the physical fighting has ceased, peace talks between the North and South have been finalized. Unfortunately, Vietnam has become a united, communistic country. Prior to this, the United States agreed to remove troops, rebuild Nam, and all participants will release prisoners of war. My producers are telling me our intern is currently in Vietnam. We are going to cut to her now. She will be giving us an inside look at where the fighting took place. Take it away, Anna.
Thanks, Maddie. I am standing here in the thick jungle of Vietnam, where much of the fighting during the past year has taken place. It seems I am disconnected from the studio. Let's take a look at the foliage. The American soldiers faced much difficulty navigating through the thick jungle. In fact, one of the main missions of the pilots was to eliminate some of the vegetation in order to clear paths and expose the enemy. Agent Orange was the herbicide sprayed by the U.S. planes. The dioxin in this chemical is highly toxic, lingering still on Vietnam soil and increasing the risk of cancer. I'm sure everything will be fine. Do you remember the early stages of the war? Operation Rolling Thunder played a big part in launching the United States into the war we shouldn't have been involved in. It focused on bombing northern Vietnam in the hopes of destroying their economy. Did I mention the operations accidentally lasted 3 years? The air missions were also for the purpose of destroying the Ho Chi Minh Trail, a vital Viet Cong supply trail. The failure of that plan led directly to the installation of our ground troops. The fighting on the ground was ruthless. Our soldiers faced guerrilla tactics.
I can't do this. Oh crap, it's sharp. Is this thing on? Listen, I shouldn't have been a part of this war. Because of the institution of the draft lottery, I almost died, all because of my birthday and initials.
Sir, tell us what you mean by that.
The government randomly pulled all 366 birth dates, and that order signified the order in which men would be drafted. Then initials would be used to order the people that had the same birthdays, and that's how I ended up here.
Tell us what it was like. to be in combat with the Viet Cong.
Our search and destroy missions were horrible. We couldn't tell from enemy from ally. And the Viet Cong hide so well in those tunnels, we couldn't even fit down inside of them.
That's right. No civilians could be trusted. Ah! Here one comes!
Why don't you tell all those Americans about the real tragedy?
Yes, I was just getting to that. I was just getting to the Tet Offensive. On the holiday of Tet, the North and South agreed to a ceasefire, but the North launched a surprise attack. They bombed U.S. bases and killed more than 3,000 unsuspecting victims. Doubts that we could win the war grew along with opposition, and the Southern Army realized that the Viet Cong were stronger than they thought. This was, however, followed with much criticism of Lyndon B. Johnson, and actually helped lead to the election of our beloved President Nixon.
That isn't the real tragedy. The worst part of this war is that it's being fought by a country with a majority that doesn't support it. Take the Kent State shooting, for instance. Students protesting the war were shot at by police. 4 people died and 9 were injured. Protests escalated when the public heard about the Mê Linh massacre, when United States soldiers killed up to 500 Vietnamese civilians. Or how about when Daniel Ellsberg released the Pentagon Papers to the public? The government was keeping secrets from us just to try to get us to support the war. All of these things divide the U.S., and a house divided upon itself falls.
I think this is getting out of hand. Maddie, can you take us back to the studio? Ah!
My heart.
Ah! Oh my.
Of course, Anna. Let's take a look at how the Vietnam War all started. President Kennedy was in office at the beginning of the war. His idea of containment and the domino theory led to our involvement in the war. The domino theory was the thought that if the South fell to communism, all other states in the region would follow their lead. Continuing, Kennedy was pressured from hawks in D.C. who believed U.S. forces were better equipped to fight than the French. Once the war began, Kennedy imposed the Strategic Hamlet. This consisted of removing South Vietnam peasants from their homes and into secure compounds. Unfortunately, this failed miserably. Overall, people blamed Kennedy for the massive amount of U.S. troops sent off. Finally, Kennedy ordered Leader Diem to be killed. This ultimately led to his assassination. Vice President Johnson was next in line. When he entered office, he agreed with the domino effect also. He also ordered the bombing raids on North Vietnam. It was meant to last 8 weeks, but in turn lasted 3 years. As he continued to send troops to South Vietnam, there was a naval battle. The U.S. destroyer Maddox fought with the North Vietnamese fighter ships in the Gulf of Tonkin. And 2 days after the battle, Maddox was attacked, although some people believe that the second attack never really happened. Nonetheless, by the end of the day, Johnson ordered airstrikes on North Vietnam. Later, in 1965, 180,000 U.S. troops were landed. Looks like we're out of time. But I have so much more to say. Okay, fine. we now return you to your regularly scheduled programming. We're Gam from NAM, and we'll catch you for the next Vietnam War.